Wait! Street vendor reveals she's a nurse and saves judge on the sidewalk. Martha Higgins was arranging the last products on her stand when she heard a dull thud behind her. A man in a grey suit had collapsed on the sidewalk in the downtown district, and passers-by were running back and forth without knowing what to do. "Someone call an ambulance!" shouted a woman in a panic. Martha dropped everything and ran to the man. She knelt beside him and quickly checked his vital signs. His pulse was weak but present. His breathing was irregular. Without hesitating, she began checking for airway obstruction. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked, gently tilting his head back. The man didn't respond. Martha realized he was conscious but clearly disoriented. Something about his symptoms didn't match a simple fainting spell. His skin was slightly bluish around the lips, and she noticed small reddish spots on his neck. "Has anyone called an ambulance?" she asked the crowd that was gathering. Already done, it's on its way," replied a nervous young man. Martha kept monitoring the man's vital signs. She was certain this was a severe allergic reaction. The signs were clear to anyone who knew how to recognize them. She placed him in the recovery position and spoke to him calmly, even without receiving a response. "Take it easy, sir. Help is on the way. You're going to be fine," she said, while carefully watching for any change in his condition. When the ambulance siren finally echoed down the street, Martha felt a moment of relief. The paramedics quickly got out and approached the scene. "Move aside, please," ordered one of the responders, pushing Martha to the side without ceremony. "Wait, I need to tell you about his symptoms," Martha tried to explain, getting up. "Are you a doctor, ma'am?" asked the paramedic sarcastically, looking her up and down at her baseball cap and vendor's apron. "No, but I'm a nurse." "Then let the professionals do their job." The man cut her off, turning his back to her. Martha insisted one more time, trying to get the other paramedic's attention. "Please, I need to tell you that he showed signs of an allergic reaction. Look at his neck, there are spots that—" "Ma'am, you're interfering with the treatment." "Step back, please," said the second responder, making a brusque gesture with his hand. Frustrated, Martha watched the paramedics place the man on the stretcher, without paying any attention to the information she was trying to pass along. They seemed to be treating the case as a simple fainting spell, only applying basic protocols. "You're not understanding," she shouted, but the ambulance was already leaving. The onlookers slowly dispersed, and Martha stood there, feeling a tightness in her chest. She knew that information could be crucial for the man's proper treatment. She knew the signs of a severe allergic reaction all too well. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. She returned to her stand with a heavy heart. The other street vendors in the area came over to find out what had happened. "So, Martha, was the man in bad shape?" asked Mr. Henry, who sold pretzels on the corner. "He was, Henry. Severe allergic reaction. I hope the doctors at the hospital know how to identify it," she replied, rearranging her products with trembling hands. "You always know all those medical things, don't you?" "Where did you get so much knowledge?" asked Mrs. Mabel, who sold flowers nearby. Martha smiled sadly but didn't answer. That was a question she heard almost every day, and she never quite knew how to respond. The truth was too painful to share with anyone. The day passed by slowly. Martha couldn't concentrate on her sales. Her mind kept drifting back to the man in the grey suit. Was he okay? Had the doctors correctly identified the problem? The feeling of helplessness consumed her. At the end of the afternoon, after packing up her products, Martha made a decision. She took the bus toward Mercy General Hospital, the closest one to the area where the man had collapsed. She needed to know if he was all right. At the hospital reception, she approached the desk timidly. "Good afternoon. A middle-aged man was brought in this morning. He collapsed on Michigan Avenue near Millennium Plaza. I wanted to know how he's doing." The receptionist looked at her with suspicion. "Are you a relative?" she asked dryly. "No. I'm the person who helped him on the street. I just want to know if he's okay." "Sorry, but I can't give out information to anyone who isn't family. It's hospital policy." Martha sighed, but she didn't give up. "Please, I just want to know if he's alive. I've been really worried." Like I said, I can't help, the receptionist repeated, turning her attention back to the computer. Martha was about to leave when a young nurse approached the desk. It was Tiffany, who had watched the street security camera footage. "Excuse me, but I overheard your conversation. Are you the woman who helped the man on Michigan Avenue?" Tiffany asked curiously. "Yes, I am," Martha replied, surprised. "I saw it on the security camera footage. The techniques you used were impressive. Where did you learn that?" Martha hesitated for a moment. She always felt a lump in her throat when someone asked that question. I used to work in healthcare," she answered vaguely. "Are you a nursing technician?" Tiffany insisted. "Something like that," Martha murmured, looking away. Tiffany noticed her discomfort, but her professional curiosity got the better of her. "The man you helped is doing fine. It was a severe allergic reaction, just like you'd identified. If it hadn't been for the first aid you gave him, he could have had very serious complications. I'm glad he's okay," Martha said with a sigh of relief. "His daughter really wants to thank the person who saved her father. She's a lawyer, very well known here in the city. She's been looking for you." "That's not necessary. I just did what anyone would do," Martha replied, starting to back away. "Wait," Tiffany called out. "At least let me take you to see how he's doing. He's Judge Arthur Sterling, a retired judge, a very respected man around here." Upon hearing the name, Martha felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her feet. Judge Arthur Sterling. That name was seared into her memory. That name had destroyed her life 8 years ago. "Are you okay? You look pale," Tiffany noticed, concerned. I think I'd better go," Martha managed to stammer, trying to keep her composure. "No, please. His daughter, Dr. Patricia, is here and she really wants to talk to you." Before Martha could protest, an elegant woman in her early 40s approached. It was Patricia Sterling, brown hair pulled up in a bun, wearing an impeccable navy blue suit. "Are you the one who saved my father?" Patricia asked, her eyes shining with emotion. Martha simply nodded, still in shock. "I don't have words to thank you. The doctors said that if it hadn't been for the first aid you provided, my father could have suffered serious after effects, or worse," Patricia continued, her voice trembling. "I just did what had to be done," Martha managed to answer, her voice almost inaudible. "Please, let me thank you properly. What's your name?" Martha hesitated. Giving her full name would mean revealing her identity, but she couldn't bring herself to lie. Martha Higgins." Patricia repeated the name, as if trying to etch it into her memory. "Martha, I would really love for you to meet my father. He wants to thank you in person." "That's not necessary, Doctor. I'm just happy to know he's doing well." Martha tried to decline. "Please, it'll only take 5 minutes. It would mean so much to him." Patricia's insistence and Tiffany's curiosity eventually wore down Martha's resistance. She found herself following the two women through the hospital corridors, her heart pounding unevenly. The private room was spacious and well lit. Judge Arthur Sterling was sitting up in bed, looking much better than he had just a few hours earlier. When he saw Martha walk in, his face lit up with a grateful smile. "So you're my savior," he said, extending his hand. Martha approached hesitantly and shook his hand. For a moment, she expected him to recognize her, but he didn't. "Thank you so much for everything you did for me. The doctor said you correctly identified that it was an allergic reaction." "You're welcome, Judge. Anyone would have done the same," Martha replied, avoiding direct eye contact. "That's not true. Very few people would have had the knowledge and the courage to act the way you did. Do you work in healthcare?" The question Martha dreaded most. She swallowed hard before answering. I used to, yes." "In what field?" the judge insisted, genuinely curious. "Nursing," she answered almost in a whisper. "Ah, a nurse. That explains everything. Do you still work?" Martha felt tears welling up in her eyes. How could she explain that she had been barred from practicing her profession because of an injustice? How could she tell him that the very man before her had been responsible for destroying her career? "No, not anymore," she managed to say. "Why?" "If I may ask," Judge Arthur inquired. noticing the sadness in her voice. Martha took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to tell him everything right there, to reveal who she was and how his decision had ruined her life. But another, wiser part knew that this wasn't the time or the place. "Personal issues," she answered vaguely. Patricia, who had been watching the conversation, noticed Martha's discomfort. "Dad, don't push her to talk about personal matters. The important thing is that she saved your life." "You're right, sweetheart. I'm sorry, Martha. I didn't mean to pry," the judge said, looking genuinely remorseful. "It's all right, Judge. At least let me repay you in some way. Do you need anything? Can I help you in any way?" The irony of the situation almost made Martha laugh. The man who had destroyed her life was offering to help. If he only knew. "I don't need anything really. I'm fine the way I am." "At least tell me where I can find you. I'd like to keep in touch if possible." "I work on Michigan Avenue, selling a few things," Martha said, still unable to believe she was having this conversation. "Selling?" Patricia asked, surprised. "But you're a trained nurse." The silence that followed was awkward. Martha felt the weight of their stares on her. How could she explain that she had been forced to abandon the profession she loved just to survive by selling things on the street? "It's a long story," she finally said. "I would love to hear it if you'd like to share," Judge Arthur said sincerely. Martha looked at him and for a moment saw not the judge who had destroyed her life, but merely an elderly, vulnerable man who had nearly lost his life and was genuinely grateful to have been saved. "Maybe another time," she replied, trying to smile. "Of course, but please promise me you'll come back to visit. I would be honored to have your friendship." "I'll think about it," Martha said, knowing she would probably never set foot there again. After saying goodbye, Martha left the hospital with her mind racing. Tiffany walked her to the exit. "Martha, can I ask you something personal?" said the young nurse. "Go ahead." "Why is a trained nurse selling things on the street?" "Did something happen?" Martha stopped and looked at the young woman. There was so much sincerity in her eyes that she felt tempted to tell her everything. "Something did happen, Tiffany. Something really bad. But it's in the past. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone in the profession," Tiffany offered. "Thank you. That's very kind of you." Martha took the bus back home with a heavy heart. The small apartment in a South Side housing project in Chicago was her refuge. She lived there with her daughter Daisy, 16 years old, who had been born with Down syndrome. "Hi, Mom. How was your day?" asked Daisy, running to hug her. "It was different, sweetheart. Very different," Martha replied, hugging her tightly. "Did something good happen?" Martha smiled. Daisy always managed to see the bright side of things. "I helped someone today, an important person." "That's awesome. You're always helping people." "That's why you're the best mom in the world," said Daisy, smiling. That night, Martha barely got any sleep. The memories from 8 years ago came flooding back with full force. She remembered the day of the trial as if it were yesterday. Judge Arthur Sterling had presided over the case that convicted her of medical negligence, resulting in the loss of her professional license. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The accusation had been made by Dr. Harrison Thorne, an influential physician at Metropolitan Medical Center, where she worked as head nurse. He accused her of negligence in medicating a patient, claiming that her mistake had caused serious complications. The evidence presented seemed conclusive, and Martha, without the resources to hire a proper defense, had been convicted. What she discovered later, too late, was that Dr. Harrison had fabricated evidence against her. The motive: personal revenge. He had been harassing her for months, making indecent advances and creating awkward situations. When Martha reported him to the hospital administration, he promised she would regret it. The promise was kept. He manipulated medical records, bribed witnesses, and created a convincing story of professional negligence. At the trial, Martha tried to defend herself, but the evidence seemed irrefutable. Judge Arthur Sterling, apparently convinced by the evidence, handed down the sentence that destroyed her career. Martha lost her professional license, was forced to pay a heavy fine in dollars, and still faced civil lawsuits from the patient's family. Unemployed and with a special needs daughter to support, she had to reinvent herself. She started by selling homemade sweets, then moved on to cleaning products, and finally settled with a small stand selling assorted goods in the downtown district. Throughout all those years, she carried the pain of injustice, but she never allowed bitterness to completely consume her. Daisy was her driving force. The girl needed special treatments, physical therapy, regular medical follow-up, and all of that was expensive. Selling on the street, though humiliating for someone with her training, provided for the two of them. The next morning, Martha returned to her selling spot with a heavy heart. She couldn't stop thinking about the irony of fate. She had saved the life of the man who, indirectly, had destroyed hers. "Good morning, Martha," greeted Mr. Henry. "So, did you hear anything about the man you helped yesterday?" "I did. He's doing well, thank God." "That's great. You saved someone's life." "This has to count for points up there," he said, pointing at the sky. Martha smiled sadly. If God was keeping score, she hoped it would make up for all the unfair suffering she had been through. The day had been ordinary when a black BMW stopped in front of her stand. Martha immediately recognized the woman who got out of the car. It was Patricia Sterling. "Good morning, Martha. May I speak with you?" "Of course, Doctor. Did something happen to your father?" "No, he's doing great. Actually, I came here for another reason. Can I buy you a coffee? I'd like to talk." Martha hesitated. She wasn't sure what Patricia's intentions were. "I can't leave my stand, Doctor. I need to work." "It'll only be half an hour, please. It's important." Patricia's insistence eventually convinced Martha. She asked Mrs. Mabel to keep an eye on her goods and followed the lawyer to a nearby cafe. "Martha, I was very intrigued by our conversation yesterday," Patricia began once they sat down. "Why?" "A trained nurse selling goods on the street. That's not common. Something very serious must have happened for you to abandon your profession." Martha nervously stirred her coffee cup. "Like I said, it's personal matters." "Did you lose your professional license?" Patricia asked directly. The question caught Martha off guard. She looked into the lawyer's eyes and saw a sharp intelligence there. "Why are you asking that?" "Because I'm a lawyer specializing in professional misconduct cases. I've seen many cases of unfairly wronged professionals losing their licenses over questionable proceedings." Martha felt her heart race. "And what does that have to do with me? I have a hunch that you may have been the victim of an injustice. The way you acted yesterday, saving my father, shows that you're a competent and dedicated professional. Incompetent nurses don't act like that." "You don't know my story," Martha said, her voice choked up. "Then tell me. Maybe I can help." Martha was silent for a long moment. Part of her desperately wanted to tell everything, to release the weight she had been carrying for 8 years. But another part was afraid of reliving that pain. It was a long time ago. There's no point in digging up the past anymore. "Martha, in my profession I've learned that it's never too late to seek justice. If there was an injustice, it needs to be corrected." "Even if it was? Even if the judge responsible was your father?" Martha asked, unable to contain herself. Patricia was frozen. Martha's question had revealed far more than she had imagined. "What? My father presided over your case?" Martha realized she had said too much. There was no turning back now. "Yes, 8 years ago. Judge Arthur Sterling was the judge who convicted me for medical negligence and took away my professional license." The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia processed the information, trying to grasp the magnitude of the situation. "My God, you saved the life of the man who destroyed mine." "Yes," Martha finished, tears in her eyes. "Martha, I need to know everything. Tell me your complete story." And so, in a busy cafe in the downtown district of Chicago, Martha poured her heart out for the first time in 8 years. She told him about Dr. Harrison's harassment, the forged evidence, the unfair trial, the loss of her license, the financial struggles, about Daisy and her special needs. Patricia listened in silence, taking mental notes of every detail. Her experience as a lawyer made her identify suspicious points in the story. "Martha, do you have any proof of what you're telling me?" "I have all the case documents at home. I've kept them to this day, I'm not sure why. Are you certain the evidence was forged? Absolutely. I knew that medical record by heart. She knew exactly which medication had been administered and in what dosage. The information presented at trial didn't match what actually happened. And why didn't you appeal the decision? I didn't have the money to hire a good lawyer. The public defender was overloaded and barely knew my case. He himself advised me to accept the decision. Patricia shook her head, outraged. This is absurd. You were clearly wronged. But it's over now, Doctor. There's no point in stirring up these things anymore. Of course there is. If there are irregularities in the proceedings, we can get the sentence reviewed. You can get your professional license back. Martha felt a wave of emotion she hadn't felt in years. The possibility of returning to nursing, of regaining her professional dignity, seemed like an impossible dream. But it'll be hard to prove the evidence was forged after all this time, she said, trying not to get her hopes up. Leave that to me. I have experience with cases like this. I can investigate the entire proceedings, look for inconsistencies, interview witnesses, and your father. How will he react when he finds out that the woman who saved his life was unjustly convicted by him? Patricia let out a deep sigh. My father is a fair man, Martha. If he finds out he made a mistake, he'll want to correct it himself. I'm sure of that. I don't know. I'm afraid of going through all of that again. You don't have to decide right now. Think it over calmly. But know that if you decide to fight, you won't be alone. I'll help you. Martha returned to her tent with her mind racing. The conversation with Patricia had awakened feelings she had buried long ago. Hope, which she thought she had lost forever, was beginning to timidly come back to life. That night, she told everything to Daisy. Mom, you have to try, the girl said with her eyes shining. You always taught me that the truth always wins in the end. But sweetheart, it could go wrong. What if we can't prove anything? At least you'll have tried, and I'll be by your side, no matter what happens. Daisy's simple wisdom touched Martha's heart. Her daughter, even with her limitations, could see things with a clarity that Martha had lost amid her suffering. The next day, Martha called Patricia. Doctor, I've made up my mind. I want to try to get my license back. That's wonderful, Martha. Can we meet this afternoon so I can review all the documentation in your case? That works, but I have one condition. What is it? Your father can't know anything for now, only when we're sure we can prove the injustice. Agreed. It'll be our secret until we have something concrete. That afternoon, Patricia went to Martha's home. The small, simple apartment contrasted with the luxurious environment she was used to, but she showed no sign of discomfort. What a cozy home, she remarked, being greeted cheerfully by Daisy. Martha showed her a box where she kept all the case documents. Patricia examined every paper with a detective's eye. Martha, already on the first read-through I can identify several irregularities. This medical report, for example, has information that doesn't match the shift schedule you were working at the time. Exactly. At the time I tried to explain that, but no one listened to me. And this witness here, Nurse Sheila Miller, did you know her? Of course. We had worked together for 3 years, but her testimony doesn't match what she actually knew about the case. Are you still in contact with her? No. After the trial, she was transferred to another hospital. She seemed uncomfortable whenever she saw me. Patricia continued analyzing the documents, taking detailed notes. Her experience told her this was a classic case of evidence tampering. Martha, I need to investigate the other cases where Dr. Harrison Thorne was the main accuser. If he did this to you, he may have done it to other people too. Do you think you'll find something? I'm almost sure. Predators like him rarely act just once. In the following days, Patricia dove into the investigation. Using her contacts in the legal and medical fields, she discovered that Dr. Harrison had been involved in at least 3 other similar cases over the past 10 years. In all of them, competent nurses had lost their licenses for alleged negligence. The pattern was always the same: young, competent women who had rejected his romantic advances or reported his inappropriate behavior. Martha, I found 3 more cases, Patricia announced excitedly on the phone. 3 other nurses who went through the same situation as you. Really? They also lost their licenses? They did. But now we have a clear pattern of behavior. I'll try to contact them to form a group. The first nurse Patricia managed to locate was Brenda Cooper, who had lost her license 5 years earlier. When she learned about Martha's case, she cried on the phone. "I knew I wasn't crazy," she said between sobs. "I knew that man had set me up." The second was Wendy Foster, found guilty 3 years earlier. Her reaction was one of relief and outrage at the same time. "Finally, someone is going to stop that monster," she declared. The third, Janet Vance, had lost her license just the previous year. She was still adjusting to her new reality when she received Patricia's call. "You don't know how much this means to me," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I was starting to believe that I really had made a mistake. With the 4 victims united, Patricia now had a much stronger case. Dr. Harrison's pattern of behavior became evident, and the inconsistencies in the court proceedings were glaring. Now we need more concrete evidence," Patricia explained to the group during a meeting at her office. "I need you to try to remember any detail that might help prove that he manipulated the evidence." It was Brenda who brought the first concrete lead. "I remember a conversation I overheard between Dr. Harrison and Nurse Sheila Miller. They were discussing something about adjusting a report. Sheila Miller is the same one who testified against me," Martha exclaimed. "I need to find her," Patricia said determinedly. Locating Sheila Miller wasn't difficult. She now worked at a hospital in the Chicago metropolitan area. Patricia went to see her during her lunch break. "Sheila, I need to talk to you about the case of Nurse Martha Higgins." Sheila's face went pale instantly. "I have nothing to say about that." "Sheila, I know you were coerced into lying. I'm not here to accuse you, but to help you do the right thing. You don't understand. If I talk, I could lose my job. Dr. Harrison has a lot of influence." "Sheila, we've already found 3 other victims of his. You're not alone, and if you help us, we can protect you." Sheila was silent for a long moment, clearly struggling with her conscience. "He threatened me," she finally confessed. "He said that if I didn't sign that statement, he would make me lose my license too. Do you have any proof of that?" "I have some emails. At the time, I was so scared that I kept everything in case I needed to defend myself. It was the proof Patricia needed." The emails clearly showed Dr. Harrison's threats and his instructions for Sheila to alter her testimony. With all this evidence in hand, Patricia felt ready for the next step, confronting her father with the truth. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out since we're just getting started. Now, continuing. She waited until the weekend to visit him at home. Judge Arthur Sterling lived in a comfortable house in the Gold Coast, surrounded by books and memories of a respectable career in the judiciary. "It's good of you to come, sweetheart. How's that lady who saved me doing, Martha, isn't it? She's the one I need to talk to you about, Dad. Is there a problem?" "Dad, I found out something very serious. Martha isn't just a street vendor. She's a trained nurse who lost her professional license." "Oh, I see. She did mention she worked in the healthcare field. What a shame she left the profession." "Dad, she didn't leave. She was forced to stop. She lost her license in a court case." "How sad. Medical negligence." "That's what was alleged. But Dad, you were the judge who convicted her." Judge Arthur Sterling froze. The weight of the revelation hit him like a punch to the gut. "What? It can't be. Martha Higgins versus Metropolitan Medical Center. 8 years ago, you presided over the trial." The retired judge brought his hands to his face, trying to process the information. "My God. The woman who saved my life was convicted by me." "Yes, Dad. But there's more. I looked into the case and discovered she was the victim of a terrible injustice." Patricia told her father everything. The harassment by Dr. Harrison Thorne, the forged evidence, the other victims, the proof of the threats. Judge Arthur listened in silence, each word landing like a dagger on his conscience. "Dad, Do you remember this case? Vaguely. There were so many trials over the years. But I do remember the evidence seemed solid. There were convincing testimonies. All manipulated, Dad. That woman lost her career, her dignity, her future, because of a well-crafted lie. And I was the instrument of that injustice, the judge murmured, his voice breaking. You didn't know, Dad. You were deceived, like all of us. That doesn't absolve me, Patricia. I should have investigated more thoroughly, questioned the evidence harder. Dad, now we have a chance to make this right. With the evidence I managed to gather, we can overturn the verdict and get Martha's license back. Of course we will. We'll do whatever it takes. I need to talk to her right away. Dad, she doesn't know you're aware of the situation yet. She's very scared and deeply hurt. We need to handle this carefully. Judge Arthur spent the rest of the weekend tormented by guilt. He constantly reread the documents Patricia had shown him, trying to understand how he had been deceived so completely. On Monday, he couldn't wait any longer. He went to Martha's vending spot alone, without telling Patricia. Martha was organizing her products when she saw the judge approaching. Her heart raced. Judge Arthur, what are you doing here? Martha, I need to talk to you. May I? Martha could tell from his expression that something had changed. There was sadness and guilt in his eyes. Of course, Judge. Martha, I know everything. My daughter told me about your case, about the injustice you suffered, about what I did to you. Martha felt her legs go weak. It was the moment she had both feared and longed for over 8 years. Judge, please let me speak first, please. I came here to ask for your forgiveness. Forgiveness for destroying your life based on lies. Forgiveness for not investigating the evidence more carefully. Forgiveness for failing you as a judge and as a human being. The words Martha had dreamed of hearing for so many years were finally being spoken, but she didn't know how to react. Judge, you didn't know... That doesn't excuse me, Martha. A judge has an obligation to question, to investigate, to seek the truth. I failed you unforgivably. Are you saying you believe me? More than that. The evidence my daughter gathered is irrefutable. You were the victim of an elaborate and cruel setup, and I was used as an instrument of that injustice. Martha began to cry. They were tears of relief, of pain, of liberation. 8 years of silent suffering finally found recognition. Martha, I promise I will do everything in my power to repair the harm I caused. We will overturn the sentence, restore your license, prosecute the real culprits. You will have justice. Judge, thank you so much for believing in me. You have no idea how much this means. Martha, may I ask you a question? Of course. How did you manage to save me knowing who I was? How did you overcome the hatred you should have felt for me? Martha wiped away her tears and looked into his eyes. Judge, I never felt hatred toward you. Pain, sadness, disappointment, yes. But hatred, never. You did what you thought was right based on the information you had. The guilty party is the one who lied, not the one who was deceived. You are an extraordinary person, Martha. I don't know if I would have the same greatness in your place. I have a special daughter, Judge. She taught me that hatred is too heavy a burden to carry. It's better to forgive and move on. Their conversation went on for another hour. Judge Arthur learned about Daisy's story, found out about Martha's financial difficulties, understood the full extent of the damage his decision had caused. When he said goodbye, he had made a decision, not only to correct the judicial error, but to ensure that Martha received all the compensation she deserved for the years of unjust suffering. Patricia was surprised when she learned that her father had gone to see Martha alone, but she was happy to see that the conversation had been positive. Dad, now we need to speed up the sentence review process. I've already talked to some colleagues. With the evidence we have, the review is a matter of weeks, not months. And Dr. Thorne, he will be criminally prosecuted. Document forgery, coercion, abuse of power. He will pay for everything he did. While the legal proceedings ran their course, Martha lived through weeks of intense anxiety. The possibility of getting her professional license back was both exciting and terrifying. She had been away from nursing for so long that she feared she would no longer be able to practice the profession. The other victims of Dr. Thorne also had their cases reviewed. Brenda, Sheila, and Janet finally saw their innocence recognized. An informal support group formed among them, strengthening each other throughout the process. The scandal gained traction in the local media. The case of 4 nurses wronged by the same doctor shocked public opinion. Dr. Thorne tried to defend himself, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. On a Tuesday morning, Patricia called Martha with the news she had been waiting 8 years for. "Martha, we did it. The sentence was overturned. Your professional license will be restored." Martha broke down in tears on the phone. Daisy, who was by her side, hugged her mother without fully understanding what was happening, but feeling the emotion of the moment. "Mom, why are you crying?" the girl asked. "These are tears of joy, my daughter. Mommy is going to be able to be a nurse again. That's awesome. Are you going to wear those white clothes again?" "Yes, Daisy, yes, I will." The license restoration ceremony was simple, but moving. Martha, accompanied by Daisy, Patricia, and Judge Arthur, officially received back the right to practice nursing. "How do you feel?" asked a journalist present. "As if I had been reborn," answered Martha, smiling through her tears. But the challenges were not over. Martha needed to update her professional skills. 8 years away from the healthcare field meant a lot of outdated knowledge, new techniques, new equipment, new protocols. "Martha, Mercy General Hospital is offering a professional reintegration program, especially for your case," Patricia informed her. "A free refresher course, supervised internship, and then a permanent position if you want it." "Is it the same hospital where your father was treated?" "Yes, it is. They were very impressed with the way you helped him. They want a professional like you on their team." Martha accepted the offer, but not without reservations. During the first few days of the refresher course, she felt insecure, constantly questioning her ability to resume her career. "Martha, you're doing really well," encouraged Tiffany, the young nurse who had become her friend. "Your skills are intact. You just need confidence." The supervised internship was a period of rediscovery. Martha realized that despite the years away, her passion for nursing remained intact. More than that, the years of hardship had given her a special sensitivity for dealing with others' suffering. "You have something special, Martha," commented the internship supervisor. "A natural empathy that can't be taught in books." During the internship, something unexpected happened. The paramedics who had ignored her on the day she helped Judge Arthur Sterling learned about her story through the media. They came to the hospital to apologize in person. "Mrs. Martha, we came to ask forgiveness for the way we treated you that day," said the head paramedic, visibly embarrassed. "You don't need to apologize. You didn't know who I was," Martha replied generously. "But we should have listened. You were trying to pass along important information about the patient. What matters is that everything turned out well. Judge Arthur made a full recovery. However, not everything was peaceful. Dr. Harrison Thorne, even though he was stripped of his medical license and facing criminal charges, wasn't passively accepting his defeat. He tried one last dirty trick. One day, when Martha was returning from the hospital after her internship, she was approached by an unfamiliar man in a parking lot. "Mrs. Martha, I need to speak with you." "Who are you?" "I'm Dr. Harrison Thorne's attorney. He'd like to make you an offer." Martha felt a chill of fear, but kept her composure. "What kind of offer?" "A generous settlement in exchange for dropping the charges against my client." "I'm not interested. You haven't even heard the amount. It's a sum that would secure the future of your special needs daughter." The mention of Daisy put Martha on alert. Was that a veiled threat? "My daughter has nothing to do with this." "Of course not. I'm just saying that with this money, you could give her the best treatments, the best schools." "My answer is no, and if you go near my daughter, I'll call the police." "No need to be hostile, Mrs. Martha. It's just a business offer." Martha walked away quickly and immediately called Patricia. "Patricia, I need to talk to you urgently. Dr. Harrison tried to bribe me." "What? Tell me everything." After hearing the account, Patricia was furious. "Martha, That's attempted bribery and intimidation. We'll use this against him in the criminal case. They mentioned Daisy. I'm scared. I'll arrange protection for the two of you. That man is desperate and could do anything. The attempted bribe backfired on Dr. Harrison. Martha had recorded the conversation on her cell phone, and that became yet another piece of strong evidence against him in the criminal case. However, the following days were tense for Martha. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The protection Patricia had arranged helped, but the fear persisted. It was Daisy who, once again, brought light to the situation. "Mum, you can't live in fear," said the girl with her simple wisdom. "Bad people exist, but good people do too, and good people always win in the end." Daisy's courage inspired Martha not to let herself be intimidated. She continued her internship with renewed determination, focused on her goal of fully resuming her career. Dr. Harrison Thorne's criminal trial was widely reported. The 4 nurses gave their testimony, as did Sheila Miller and other witnesses. The evidence was irrefutable. Martha was nervous on the day of her testimony, but she spoke with clarity and dignity about everything she had suffered. When the prosecutor asked if she felt hatred toward the defendant, her answer surprised everyone. "I don't feel hatred. I feel pity. Pity for a man who had a position of respect and chose to use it to do harm. I hope he learns from his mistakes and changes his life." Martha's generosity contrasted with the arrogance of Dr. Thorne, who continued to proclaim himself innocent despite the evidence. The judge had no doubt when handing down the sentence, 5 years in prison for document forgery, coercion, and abuse of power. Furthermore, Harrison permanently lost the right to practice medicine. "Justice was done," commented Patricia after the sentence. "Finally," sighed Martha, feeling an immense weight lift from her shoulders. With the case closed, Martha could focus entirely on her professional reintegration. The internship was coming to an end, and she felt increasingly confident in her abilities. "Martha, we would like to offer you a permanent position as a supervising nurse," announced the hospital director. "Your experience and maturity would be very valuable to our team." "Supervisor? But I just came back." "Exactly. You brought a different perspective, a special sensitivity. Besides, your story inspired the entire team." Martha accepted the position with gratitude. For the first time in 8 years, she would again have a decent salary, health insurance for Daisy, and professional stability. But there was one last thing she wanted to do before officially starting her new job. "Patricia, I'd like to have a special farewell at my vending spot," she said. "Of course, Martha. What do you have in mind?" "I want to say goodbye to the other vendors, to the people who bought from me. They were my family all these years." The following Saturday, Martha organized a small farewell party at her old vending spot. Mr. Henry, Mrs. Mabel, and all the other street vendors in the area attended. "Martha, we won't be the same without you here," said Mr. Henry, moved. "You all were my strength during the hardest times," she replied. "I will never forget your solidarity." "But you'll keep coming by here to visit us, right?" asked Mrs. Mabel. "Of course I will. In fact, I have a proposal for you all." Martha explained her idea, to create a basic healthcare program for the street vendors in the area. Once a week, she would come to the spot to check blood pressure, give health advice, and provide basic first aid. "It's my way of repaying everything you all did for me," she explained. The proposal was received with enthusiasm. It was Martha's way of keeping ties with that community that had been her second family. Judge Arthur Sterling also attended the farewell. His presence caused a certain initial discomfort, but soon everyone realized he was there as a friend, not as an authority figure. "Martha, may I speak with everyone?" he asked. "Of course, Judge. Folks, you lived alongside a heroine all these years and maybe didn't know it. Martha is not just a brave person who saved me on the street. She is an example of dignity, perseverance, and forgiveness. You were lucky to have her as a friend." The applause that followed was moving. Martha cried, but this time they were tears of pure happiness. Daisy was also there, proud of her mother and happy to see her finally recognized for what she had always been, a special person. "Mum, now you're going to be a nurse again," the girl said, hugging Martha. "Yes, sweetheart, and you'll be able to have everything you need for your treatment." "I only need you, Mom. Everything else is just extra." Martha's first week as supervising nurse was intense. She had to adapt to her new responsibilities, get to know the team, and understand the hospital's protocols. But with each passing day, she felt more fulfilled. "Martha, you've transformed the atmosphere of our unit," Tiffany commented. "The patients love you, and the team is more motivated." "It's good to be back doing what I love," Martha replied with a smile. However, the final test of her journey of redemption was still to come. On a Thursday morning, an emergency arrived at the hospital. A man had been in a serious car accident and was in critical condition. When Martha saw who the patient was, her heart stopped for a moment. It was Dr. Harrison Thorne. He had been temporarily released from prison to await appeals from his defense when he had the accident. Now he was there unconscious and in serious condition, depending on the care of the medical team. Everyone in the unit knew the story between Martha and Harrison. They looked at her with expectation, some hoping she would refuse to treat him. "Martha, do you want me to take this case?" a colleague offered. Martha was silent for a moment, looking at the man who had destroyed her life. He was vulnerable, dependent, in the hands of the same person he had wronged. "No," she said finally. "I'll take care of him." "Are you sure?" "I am. He's a patient like any other. He needs care and I'm a nurse. It's my duty to take care of him." Over the following days, Martha took care of Dr. Harrison with the same professionalism and dedication she showed to all patients. She checked his vital signs, administered medication, and discussed his progress with the medical team. When he finally regained consciousness and recognized her, his reaction was one of surprise and embarrassment. "Martha, you're treating me." "Yes, doctor. How are you feeling?" "Why? Why are you taking care of me after everything I've done?" Martha adjusted his IV and looked him in the eyes. "Because I'm a nurse, doctor, and nurses take care of sick people, regardless of who they are or what they've done." "I don't deserve your kindness," he murmured, tears in his eyes. "Every human being deserves care when they're sick. This has nothing to do with merit." "Martha, I'm so sorry. So sorry for everything I've done." "I know, doctor. And I forgive you." This scene was witnessed by several members of the hospital staff. The news that Martha had dedicatedly cared for the man who had destroyed her professionally spread quickly. "Martha, what you did was extraordinary," the hospital director commented. "It shows the true spirit of nursing." "I just did my job," Martha replied modestly. "No, you did much more than that. You taught all of us a lesson in humanity." Martha's act of forgiveness had repercussions she never imagined. The story reached the newspapers, social media, and inspired other people to forgive old grievances. Dr. Harrison, deeply moved by Martha's attitude, decided not to appeal his sentence. When he recovered from the accident, he himself went to the authorities to serve his full sentence. "I want to pay for what I did," he declared. "Nurse Martha's attitude showed me what true character is. I need to learn from her example." Months had passed since Martha resumed her career. Her life had changed completely. Daisy was receiving the best treatments, attended a quality special school, and had prospects for a much better future. "Mom, are you happy?" Daisy asked one day. "Very happy, sweetheart. Happier than I ever thought I could be again. I always knew everything would work out in the end." "How did you know?" "Because you're good, Mom, and good people always win in the end." Daisy's simple wisdom kept surprising Martha. The outreach program for street vendors that Martha had created became a model for other parts of the city. Once a week, she returned to Michigan Avenue to look after her former co-workers. "Martha, you're our heart nurse," Mr. Henry would say every time she showed up. "And you're my chosen family," she would reply, checking his blood pressure. Judge Arthur Sterling had become a close friend of Martha and Daisy. He had created an assistance fund for healthcare professionals who had been unjustly convicted, using his own experience as an example of the importance of questioning evidence. "Martha, you taught me that to err is human, but to correct mistakes is divine," he said during a visit. "Judge, you're a good man who was misled. Don't blame yourself forever for that. Your generosity amazes me every day." Patricia had changed as well. The experience of helping Martha had awakened her to a new calling, defending healthcare professionals who were victims of injustice. She had become even more specialized in that area and had already helped dozens of people. "Martha, you changed my life too," she confessed. "I found my true professional purpose through your case." Sometimes the bad things that happen to us end up helping other people, Martha reflected. On a Sunday afternoon, Martha was at home with Daisy when she received an unexpected call. "Martha, it's Brenda. Can you come to the hospital? We have a surprise for you." "What kind of surprise?" "Come and see." Curious, Martha brought Daisy along, and they went to the hospital. In the main lobby, a small crowd had gathered. When she approached, everyone began to applaud. It was a tribute organized by the other 3 nurses who had been victims of Dr. Harrison Thorne, along with the hospital staff and the street vendors from Michigan Avenue. "Martha, you were our inspiration to fight," Brenda said emotionally. "If you hadn't had the courage to seek justice, we would still be suffering in silence. You taught us that it's never too late to start over," Janet added. "And that forgiveness frees the one who forgives more than the one who is forgiven," Wendy finished. Martha was speechless. She looked at all the people gathered there, colleagues, vendor friends, Patricia, Judge Arthur, and her precious Daisy. "You have no idea how much this means to me," she managed to say at last. "For 8 years I thought my story was over, that I would never be the person I was before. But you showed me that sometimes we need to pass through the valley of shadows to reach the mountain of joy." "Keep going, Mom," Daisy encouraged, proud. "I learned that injustice can knock us down, but it can't destroy us if we don't allow it. I learned that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, and I learned that sometimes we save people who don't even know they need to be saved." The applause was long and heartfelt. Martha looked at Judge Arthur, who was smiling with tears in his eyes. "And I learned that all of us can make mistakes, but what defines us is how we handle those mistakes once we discover them." After the tribute, when everyone had dispersed, Martha was left alone with Daisy in the hospital garden. "Mom, do you think our story has a happy ending?" The girl asked. "My dear, our story has no ending. It's only just beginning a new chapter." "What kind of chapter?" "A chapter where we are happy, where we help other people, where we live with dignity and love." "I like that kind of story," said Daisy, smiling. "Me too, my dear." "Me too." Martha looked up at the starry Chicago sky and felt a deep peace wash over her heart. She had come a long way since that morning when she came to the aid of a stranger on Michigan Avenue. A path full of pain, but also of discoveries about her own strength. Now she knew she had done more than just save Judge Arthur Sterling's life that day. She had saved her own life too. She had saved herself from bitterness, from resentment, from giving up, and most importantly, she had become proof that it is possible to start over, no matter how dark the night may seem. There is always a morning waiting to dawn. The end. Now tell us what you thought of the story of Martha and Judge Arthur Sterling. Do you think she made the right decision in forgiving those who wronged her? Would you do the same in her place? Leave your opinion in the comments with sincere words. We would be delighted to read your point of view. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other exciting stories like this one.